People who don't watch NASCAR usually think one thing about it. It's just a bunch of left turns. But NASCAR is so much more than that. It's a sport of athleticism, strategy, endurance, and 200-mile-per-hour focus. If you don't have all of those things, you can't even dream of winning.
This is Texas Motor Speedway, a 1.5-mile oval near Fort Worth. And I'm Alanis King. 15 years ago, almost to the day, I showed up at this track thinking NASCAR was just a bunch of left turns. But today, I want to show you just how complex and fascinating it actually is.
I found my buddy Aiden McHugh wandering around the track. He's the lead engineer on the #1 car for Junior Motorsports, driven by Sam Mayer. I asked him to show us why the surface and unique banking at Texas Motor Speedway make this track a challenge for engineers and drivers alike.
We are in turns 1 and 2 at Texas Motor Speedway, which look a little different than they used to, right, Aiden?
Yes. When the track was reconfigured and reprofiled in 2017 in an effort to alleviate the drainage issues that had caused extended delays here in years past, turns 1 and 2 were flattened from 24 degrees of banking down to 20 degrees. Now, in an effort to save a little bit of time and money, they left the catch fencing and the grandstands in the same place they used to be and simply widened the track towards the apron when they flattened it out. The problem with this, though, is that it makes the entrance really awkward. So when drivers come into the corner at a normal intermediate track, the banking would rise very quickly in the upper lanes and they'd be able to enter in the middle or on the fence. But because of the way the track was reprofiled and flattened out, there's not enough for them to lean on up in the upper grooves. So essentially we have about 5 parking lots worth of useless asphalt above the second lane at Texas Motor Speedway. This leads to drivers taking a much lower and shallower entry, which further reduces their mid-corner speed like the less banking does.
Can you talk about what you mean by leaning on it for people who don't know?
Well, as the car loads up, if you think about the car on the banking, it presses down and compresses into the corner. With less banking, the car loads less and the suspension travels less into the corner. So with less banking and even less banking rise in the upper lanes, there's not enough compression in the suspension for the drivers to have stability in those lanes.
So how does that affect the racing product in this corner?
Really negatively. It's not great.
Aiden and I meandered the track, noticing things that were similar and different to Texas's sister track, Charlotte Motor Speedway.
We're standing here at the entrance to Turn 3 at Texas Motor Speedway, which is identical in both banking and radius to Charlotte Motor Speedway. The difference being, at Texas Motor Speedway, because of the flatter turns 1 and 2, drivers will enter this corner a lot slower than they will at Charlotte. So where I'm standing right here is about the lift point that you would see drivers utilize at Charlotte Motor Speedway. However, here at Texas, they'll be driving in all the way down to Alanis, down there where the banking is loaded up, and they'll be able to carry throttle all the way into the banking before just taking a slight lift over the bumps to get the car settled into the corner and jumping straight back into the throttle to come rocketing down the front straightaway.
As we approached the final turn, Aiden and I felt the need for speed and decided to race up the 24-degree banking.
Okay. I can't go that fast. I can't go that fast. This is really hard. Oh, this is steep as hell. I don't have health insurance, so I can't go fast. I don't think I can get up here. No.
Here we are in the middle of turns 3 and 4 at Texas Motor Speedway. This end of the racetrack has 24 degrees of banking compared to the 20 degrees of banking in turns 1 and 2. Because of the increased banking, cars will go much faster at this end of the racetrack and experience about 20% higher vertical loads. Because of the way that turns 1 and 2 are with the less banking and the lower corner speed, if you set your aero platform correctly for turns 1 and 2, the cars will have a high chance of bottoming out in turns 3 and 4. And as you can see by these tire tracks leading straight into the wall, what happens when you bottom out the car. On the Cup cars with the rear suspension, when the bump stop engages, the only part of the car that can give is the tire's sidewall, which can lead to pretty much an instantaneous failure and a caution.
Aiden Martin showed us that he might know what he's talking about by getting his driver, Sam Mayer, into victory lane on Saturday. Sam made a pass on the final lap and won by 2/1000ths of a second, securing the trophy and the Dash for Cash $100,000 bonus.
What do you say, buddy?
100 grand reacher, baby.
Woo!
We talked about how you did it, but then you did it. How'd you do it?
I mean, the car was pretty bad at the beginning of the race. Like, we just fired off way tighter than we should have been. He was fighting with the wind a lot, but we kept the car freed up all day. Sam kept his head in it. He ended up pitting on the wrong lap. He misheard us on the radio, which ended up being a really good undercut, and we got like 3 spots out of it. And then I thought he missed the corner in 3 and 4, and I thought the 39 was going to get back around us, but kept his foot in it, doored him a little bit, photo finish, victory lane. Gonna drink some beer tonight? Let's go!
Now that I've gotten a taste for victory, I'm on the hunt to see what the keys to success are for other teams.
Another key to winning a race is focus, and you gotta be awake to focus. That is where your coffee comes in. Apex Coffee Roasters is a brand new partner for this channel, and I am so excited because not only is this branding awesome, the coffee tastes great. If y'all are interested in trying it, you can use this code on the screen for a discount on your order.
So, understanding the track and how it affects your setup, check. Coffee from Apex Coffee Roasters, check. Now, let's go talk to my good friend, Parker Kligerman, fellow YouTuber and driver of the number 48 car for Big Machine Racing, about what makes oval racing so complex.
Oval racing is managing tiny, minute differences that have huge effects. So like at this track, 1 and 2, we brake about 150 pounds to 250 pounds. You go from 195, almost 200 miles an hour, down to like 160, 155. And that is the most important corner because getting back the throttle, compressing that time you're not in the throttle, then connects you to 3 and 4. Now in the race, we'll brake a little bit in 3 and 4, but like qualifying, I was flat out through there, tapping the brake at like 190 miles an hour, 193. So and the difference, if you look like in the Cup Series, the difference from 1st to 30th might be 0.3. Mm-hmm. So it's nothing.
So we've talked about a lot about what you can do to mess up on an oval track. How do you win on an oval track?
How do you win? So the races I've won, car is important, execution, being super aggressive on restarts, because we talk about this all the time, but restarts are the largest opportunity aside from the pits to make the easiest passes. Once we all start going and we're running a line, we're up to speed, as the tires fall off and everything, the cars equalize very like across the board. And so making those differences and making up time gets harder and harder. So in a restart, when you have us all bunched up and you can shoot to the inside and make 3 positions, that is like gold. So it's being aggressive on restarts, it's executing, and it's being ability to be super dynamic with where you run, how you adjust, how you make the car better, what you decide to do lap after lap, corner after corner, and then throughout the whole race. And if you do that well, hopefully you'd be in victory lane. I like to say, for this place especially, I just said this earlier, what I wrote in my notes was, you have to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. And that's oval racing to a T. Like, our cars are super edgy on the entry of the corner right now. You have to just be okay at 195 mile an hour that car is gonna wiggle around, and it's gonna move, and it's gonna feel really unsettling, and you just gotta tell yourself that's okay. And that, if you do that better than everyone else, you should be able to win.
Speaking of winners, you know who wins a lot? Hendrick Motorsports. If you like my Hendrick Motorsports shirt, it's 15% off at Home Field Apparel with code ALANIS24.
Not all teams are created equally. Some teams have monster budgets, the best engineers, and an expectation to win multiple races every year. Other teams, like Alpha Prime Racing, celebrate top 10s like victories. Operating on a quarter of the budget of big teams, I talked to team owner Tommy Joe Martins about how they save money by buying unused tires from other teams for about half off.
We actually had a truck race last night. We expected there to be a lot of carnage. There was a lot of carnage. Unfortunately, it happened really late in the race, right? So if you were going to say that's the same tire that we're running in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, is in the truck series, yeah, we would look at that and say, hey, anybody that didn't use their tires the night before, we'll buy those off of you. That way you don't necessarily just have to eat an entire set of tires. You don't get to keep them. You don't get to take them with you. So we'll do that and maybe get a discount, or even during the race today. This is a race that is traditionally played out with a lot of carnage. And so, yeah, why would we buy everything brand new and spend the maximum amount of money when we expect there to be some attrition during the race, and that might be able to save us a little bit of money. I mean, a set of tires now is going for around $2,500. I mean, so one set of tires, you're saving $1,200. So it is definitely worth waiting if possible. Now, there are disadvantages to this for teams that just want to show up and buy an entire allotment of tires. They're able to get all of their numbers from Goodyear. They know exactly the size and the kind of the run out on each one of the tires, the spring rate of each tire. And the more you buy, the more that you can kind of group those up and say, okay, these are going to be my best set of right side tires. These are going to be my best set of left side tires. You kind of organize them throughout the race. And so you have a lot more say in that. Whereas obviously if we're buying that off of a truck team or off a team that just fell out of the race, you're kind of just taking 4 tires and throwing them on the car. So that is a disadvantage. And at the same time, financially, it's a big advantage where now all of a sudden a $25,000 bill for 2 cars to run in a race turns into a $15,000 bill. That's a big deal.
Another big deal is the spotter. If you haven't seen my previous video about becoming a NASCAR spotter, check that out after this video. We'll link it on the screen. At Texas, the spotters stand on the roof high above the track and radio important information to the drivers. I asked 23XI Racing's Nick Payne, spotter for Cup Series driver Tyler Reddick, how he would describe his job and what makes spotting so complex.
First thing I tell everyone is kind of we're metaphorically kind of sitting on the driver's shoulders. We talk to him, tell him kind of where to go. We feed back information from the pit box, things like that. We're constantly being fed info, data, just where to run line-wise, strategy, all sorts of things. So we're constantly conveying that to the driver. What makes it complex? There's a lot of things going on. We're constantly wearing about 4 or 5 radios at a time, listening to NASCAR in one ear. We have channel 2 where we talk directly to the crew chief. Some people even have a 3rd channel where they can talk to other people, but the driver only hears channel 1. That's what makes it complex is you have 6 or 7 people that can constantly be talking at once. You have your driver sometimes having a meltdown. Your crew chief can be melting down at the same time. NASCAR's yelling because there's cars wrecked everywhere. So it can be tough. But yeah, so we kind of just sit on the driver's shoulders. We talk to them, convey information. But yes, we are the middleman. We often sometimes get the blunt of the punishment, but it's fine. Everything's typically pretty good. It runs pretty smooth at this level. Truck and Xfinity can be a little more chaotic because there's definitely some more tempers in that and just a lot of learning and growing. But yeah, so we're middlemen.
When you're in a race and something happens, usually a driver gets a lot of credit if there's a win, but other people get a lot of credit if something goes wrong. So
right.
how can you mess up as a spotter, but also how can you help a driver actually win a race as a spotter?
Right, yeah, so I would say the easiest way to mess up is to kind of lose track of what's going on. Not knowing certain situations are happening kind of in front of you and being really aware of what's going on. So if you're the lucky dog, if you just got put a lap down, if you spun out, you need to beat the leader and things like those are the easiest ways to get in trouble. The inside-outside clear at this level, it just kind of comes natural to us. With the driver's rear view cameras they have now, that's kind of a fail-safe for us. So those days are kind of over. But I would say definitely the easiest ways to mess up are losing track of where you are and getting caught in situations where you're kind of unfamiliar and you just kind of get caught with your pants down is what we call it. And but yeah, drivers get celebrated for all the wins because they're the ones who do it. What we do is very important, same as everybody else, but they do all the hard work, they do all the prep. But super speedways, we get a little more time to shine. If we win a super speedway, we get glorified a little more, but still mostly all the driver. He's the one holding the steering wheel. That's what I always say. Even if he does wreck someone, I was like, "Oh, it's him. It wasn't me. I didn't tell him to do it." Yeah, but yeah. So no, it's definitely fun. But yeah, no, it's good.
While engineers like Aiden work on making the car fast, there are other engineers who work with the drivers on getting the most out of the car and creating a strategy that puts their team ahead of others. I asked J.R. Houston, race engineer at 23XI, how the team prepares for a race and how they adapt when unexpected hurdles arise.
a lot of tracks, we bring the same tire, we bring the same racetrack that we were here last time with, right? And then just a couple weeks ago, we were at a track that the tires just fell apart, and we had to change our whole plans. Nothing like that had ever happened before. So really, it's in the moment, does everything line up like it's supposed to? And then when it doesn't, it's a lot of keying on how much work we did preparing. But then also, Booty Barker, my crew chief, has been around the sport for a really long time, has a really creative mind. And a lot of it is just gut instinct, and he's got great gut instinct, and I'm trying to learn from him with that and just try to make better decisions.
When someone tells you, oh, you do NASCAR, that's just turning left, and you feel like having that conversation, what do you tell them?
We do a lot of turning left. We're just trying to turn left faster than everybody else. There's so much engineering that goes into this. I think a lot of other motorsports have slowly grown that idea of like, okay, we're a technology industry. We race technology, right? We race engineering. One of the coolest things in my job is in an engineering field, when you're in industry, you don't really compete against anybody. You create a part for call it an OEM vehicle, and that door handle goes out and it survives for 100,000 miles on a street car. You don't really get to compete against anybody. Every week, 36 weeks of the year, I get to compete in the engineering field. It's more so than just completing a task. I get ranked, I get graded every week on how we finish and how we do. So that makes it really different than regular industry. And that's what I was trying to tell people when they're like, well, what do you do as an engineer? Well, I compete against all the other engineers. It's like an engineering competition that's a sport. So.
As we get closer to the start of the Cup race on Sunday, the teams are setting up their pit boxes on pit road. I spot Adam Riley, tire changer for Michael McDowell's number 34 Ford Mustang. We talked tools of the trade and how he and his crew can change tires in less than 10 seconds.
Adam takes this gun, puts it against a wheel, and it spins at 15,000 RPM. Adam. That'll make you jump.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So your job moves very, very quickly. You have a single lug nut that you hit, loosen it, and then we put the new wheel on, and then you tighten that lug nut back on. This is a very difficult job because if this lug nut is too loose, the wheel falls off. If it's too tight, you can't get it off when the car comes back in. Correct, Adam?
Very correct. It's very
All
accurate.
right. So what do you do to make sure you do this right?
So what I do is I get a couple reps on this practice hub that we have here. You can't see it now, but there is a practice lug on this practice hub simulating what we do in a pit stop as a tire changer. So I work on my engagement, making sure teeth meet the inserts on the lug nut, thread goes to thread, take it off and just go maybe 5 or 6 times just to practice my muscle memory and technique. And we put a coat of, it's not Molly coat, it is Molly coat. It's Molly coat that goes on the lug nut just for lubrication, make sure it stays there and it doesn't get loose. All right, air's going on. All right, ready. Just like that. Like I said before, just working with this practice hub, we really focus on making sure that I get thread to thread on the threads of the hub and the thread with the lug nut that's engaged to our socket. So I just work that. I want to see it go past, and I have these here socket lines to make sure that once the socket stops, that means the wheel is on, it's tight, it's fully seated on the hub, on the drive pin holes to the drive pins. And then, and so when it's still spinning, if it's not a complete stop, that means there's still a little bit more of a ugga-dugga that needs to go.
And these orange lines really help you because this is what your eye sees.
Yes.
So when they slow down, you know that the lug nut is getting tighter, basically.
Yes, absolutely.
Because when it's spinning really, really fast, it's just all orange, and then it starts to slow down.
Right.
And that helps you train it.
Absolutely.
How do you prep the wheels, the guns, anything you need to do before the race?
So a lot of our prep work is done by our road crew at the shop. But as you see here, we have many tape marks on the spokes that we grab. So Thomas has his tape marks for a different spoke than I do because he pulls right-handed. And so when we get to the car, we get to the hub, we get engagement, it's easier for us to see which spoke we want to grab so we don't grab the wrong one and end up messing up a pull. Yeah.
Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you would like people to know? Like when you're telling someone about your job, what do you tell them?
So I'm funny, and I say that I'm a glorified mechanic.
There you go. I love that.
Or if I'm really funny, I say that I play in traffic.
You do play in traffic. You jump in
Absolutely.
front of a moving car all the
It's
time.
very, very true. Very true.
I also saw Adam's teammate Nate putting tape on some tires. We went up and asked him a few questions as well.
My buddy Nate McBride is the jack handler on the 34, but the jack handler doesn't just jack up the car. They also have to pick up tires and carry them. So he's doing a very special thing right now. Nate, what are you doing?
So what I'm doing is I tape off three tape marks every big spoke. So what I do for that is, instead of filling for the tire, I don't know where I'm going to be filling for. It makes it slower, slows you down. Instead, you put a tape mark down, so when you grab the tire, you know where you're grabbing, so you can put it on faster, which means you can get back to the jack faster to run around to do the left sides.
Tape doesn't just go on the tires. It also goes on the ground to tell the drivers where to stop in their box. Kellen Mills, jack handler on Eric Jones's number 43 Toyota Camry, told me how these visual markers are a big key to a successful pit stop.
There is tape every step of the way in a pit stop. There's tape on the car that shows Kellen where to put the jack, and there's tape on the box. Kellen, what does this tape do?
So the tape here is a design that shows the driver essentially where he needs to come to a stop. Obviously, it's not hard to imagine when you're coming that fast, it's not that easy to see. So it also gives our behind the wall guy an indication of where he needs to hold that over the wall sign. So they can see the big sign coming in, that over the wall sign shows where the nose of the car needs to be. Some drivers kind of pick it differently, but Eric puts it on his body. And these two marks here, that's to assist us on the overhead camera of kind of giving the driver a grade. So these are exact measurements, so we can kind of use it from car to car, get a precise measure.
And stopping in the same place is really important because y'all have locations that you go to do the pit stop. So if the driver stops too far forward or too far back, you have to adjust and you lose time.
Yeah, so we start off the wall, we kind of anticipate him stopping here. I'd say there's about a foot forward, a foot back of like easy adaptability. If he hits on the money, you're gonna get guys with a lot of their initial metrics in a negative. Every bit longer, that's gonna slow that down. So the stop essentially starts half a second to maybe a full second later when he misses his mark from a better or worse stop.
And when you have a 9-second stop and you have to hop, that's a lot of time.
Exactly, and with your carrier where the hoses lay, where that right front tire gets set, sometimes those things are down and then the stop starts with things out of position. So you're having to adapt to that for the whole right side. That often spills over to the left side. So him going really long, really short can have some significant impacts on the overall time of the stop.
Now that we've learned about the intricacies of oval racing, it's time to watch the race and take it all in. The cars fire off and we see them make the awkward entrance into the 20-degree banking in turn 1. Just like Aiden told us, the leaders come into turns 3 and 4 flat out and play a game of chicken, testing who is the most comfortable being uncomfortable. Like Parker said, as the race plays out, we see different strategies emerge, just like JR predicted. And of course, we see the brilliant athleticism of the pit crews. Winning takes a team of engineers with a plan, a driver who can extract speed from the car, and a few perfect pit stops. All the while, I get to stand at the fence and get hit by a giant wall of air as the cars pass by. The choreography of all of this can get lost in the chaos and pageantry of a NASCAR race. But every weekend I'm lucky enough to be at the track, I get reminded that turning left is a lot harder than it looks.